So, good morning. One more time, for those who visited us yesterday, I'm happy to be here with you today, and we will have our workshop that's dealing with Project nuMIDAS. Don't worry, it will be iterative, so you won't see too many presentations, but for you to have some idea about the nuMIDAS project and also to give you an overview of the topics we are going to deal with in an iterative way, we will have just two short presentations that should give you a better idea what is it actually about. And for this, I would like to ask our good colleague Sven, who will introduce very briefly our nuMIDAS project. So Sven, please.
Thank you, Andres. My name is Sven Marvoet. I work for Transport and Mobility Leuven. We are a Belgian research and consulting company. And together with a group of companies and universities, we wrote a proposal for the European Commission. And this led to the nuMIDAS project, of which today is the workshop and of which I will tell you a little bit. nuMIDAS is an acronym. It just actually means that we look at new mobility data and solutions, and we try to provide them in some sort of a toolkit for various stakeholders. As I said, it is following a topic from the European Commission, which highlights these kind of things where they want to look at new mobility, data trends, etc. For the moment, we are running for 24 months. We started early this year and will end at the end of next year. For our main objectives, there are 5 important things. First thing, of course, is to look at what kind of trends are occurring. Is the landscape changing? And if so, how is it changing? So we need to understand what we can expect regarding, for example, mobility as a service, autonomous vehicles, and electrification, maybe road So I start again. Huh? Okay. So my name is. Oh, okay, perfect. Let me go here. So the main objectives for our project are to look at what kind of mobility trends are occurring. Examples of these are, for example, mobility as a service, automated vehicles, low emission zones, these kind of things. People using different kinds of vehicles, different kinds of transportation modes, how all this integrates into a city or into a local road authority's landscape. This is important to understand. We need to understand how it impacts the efficiency of the traffic system, what the changes are regarding to the environment or safety, etc. And once we know all of this, we can quantify this. And this will lead to the next step where we can create tools. And with these tools, policymakers and stakeholders can look at the mobility system and see whether or not solutions that they have will work or not work, or if they work, to what kind of degree. And for us, this is very interesting because it also allows us and them to collect new kinds of data that we didn't a priori know that or that we didn't think were necessary. And in order to have a complete overview of this, we have to devise a toolkit, and this is what the nuMIDAS project is about. Currently, we are with 9 parties involved. So we have us, then we have parties from the Netherlands, from Greece, we have Italy, we have Spain, we have Czechia. All of these are involved, and the bottom 3 especially are important because they are actually local municipalities for cities. So the idea is that whatever we do in nuMIDAS can be tested in certain cities and is based on certain cities. So for the moment, we have Leuven, Barcelona, and Milan. Of course, we get information from other cities as well, but these are the main ones that we test and field test and trial our solutions in. Currently, and this is the most complicated thing, let's say, today, we have about 4 main work packages. As told before, we first want to check what kind of trends exist on the mobility landscape. Based on them, we can create new tools and look at what kind of, let's say, prototypes we can develop. This will all lead to case studies in which we try to experiment with these things. These case studies will take place in the pilot cities that you saw before. And in the end, this will lead to a toolkit that we can give to stakeholders in all other cities or all other countries that are willing to participate in this. So we encourage you to think with us about what kind of, let's say, new concepts are available, what kind of trends exist, in what direction you see everything going, and then we can further our work and then help you out and you can help us out. So if you want to contact me or Mr. Prebble, please go ahead. And I also would encourage you to go to our website and register yourself for our newsletter. It's about every 6 months so that you don't miss anything and that you also know what kind of events we'll be organizing or what deliverables we have. So with that, I give the word back to either Ondrej or Roberta, I'm not sure, but that's that for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sven. I'm sorry for the technical problem. I hope it will be working now. So thank you. Yes, after this introduction, I will talk very briefly about some of the main questions that we actually came up with when we started working on the tools, challenges, etc. So I will just try to give a broader definition of what we are talking about, so that then together in an interactive manner we will be able to discuss things and get some feedback from you, which is actually the main objective for today. So I would start with my short presentation, please. Just a minute, please. Okay. So we started actually with the Okay, so when we started working on when we wanted to understand the smart mobility and mobility in cities nowadays, we have looked at the traditional approach. And for me personally, I really like the work done by Federal Highway Administration, where they define several categories of analytical tools. They define for which application or for which field they are suitable. They define several ways that should help us to apply them. But the world is changing. So first thing that we have observed, the categories of tools are not that clearly defined anymore. Basically, microscopic simulation models are developing features in the direction of meso or macroscopic and vice versa. So it's not so easy to define really the traditional or to see really the traditional categories of tools. We have many new data sources that are not always accounted for in the tools. The same with new technologies, new travel modes, cooperative system, automated vehicles, and not all of the traditional tools are able to deal with such new technologies or new algorithms. We are observing digitalization, the whole topic of big data, artificial intelligence, and others. What's also for me personally quite important, especially since we are actually here as part of the Smart City Symposium Prague, we really must take transportation as part of a city. We cannot look at transportation by itself, but we need to talk to urbanists on the development of cities. We must think about topics such as mobility as a service, so service-oriented approach, etc. Very important. And also, we were not that satisfied with looking at the tools as a starting point. We really truly believe that the city managers and policy makers shall be the primary focus of our analysis and not, we should not start with the tools. And also, many of the traditional tools were looking at infrastructure, so building new infrastructure, capacity of infrastructure, etc. But nowadays there is a big shift towards using the existing infrastructure and existing resources more efficiently. Plus, we must address new issues such as environmental issues, sustainability, quality of life, etc. So how actually can we put all of these dimensions together? That was a big challenge that we tried to approach with our proposal nuMIDAS model. So we start with stakeholders. Such stakeholders have certain goals, and these goals clearly should be addressing challenges. What can the stakeholders do to address those challenges? They apply certain services. A service is, for example, mobility as a service, something rather big, basically the whole policy. And such service consists of several use cases which we can understand as high-level functionality. So when mobility as a service is a service, then we can have, for example, pricing mechanism as one use case of these services. These use cases are then realized by certain methods and tools, similar to what we have seen so far. These methods use data collected from various data sources, especially, again, with respect to smart cities. Yesterday we had several presentations about the new data and how to work with them. And this is all input to the tools. The output of these tools are new variables, for example, travel times, delay, etc. We can select some of those output variables or measured data as our KPIs, so some performance indicators that we really want to base our decisions on. And these are typically visualized on some dashboard and are used for our policy instruments to really see its impact and to be able to control. So that's the approach that we want to say, and the advantage is that we are not limited to one list or one matrix, but through this model we can really see all the dimensions that are of interest to us. What we would like to discuss today with you are basically the changes that we observe in real world. Changes for example, on the business models that we are observing, we don't want to list those that we are aware of. We just wanted to highlight some that we find important, and we will be really looking forward to your feedback on that. So what we have observed is, for example, this service dominant perspective, mobility as a service. We shouldn't care about buying a car, we should care about the mobility. We want to get somewhere. Similarly, there is a big shift from owning to using. So all this shared services, shared mobility. We are observing circular economy. And what is important, we don't want to see boundaries. We don't want to see boundaries from traffic system to urban planning or to environment. We want to look at it as a whole, and we want basically travel from home to our destination without caring about the various travel modes. It should be all seamless, and we really want integrated solutions. And in the business perspective, we are also observing several new players, and we really need to take care, or pay good attention to the various business models, to the various actors, etc. Another important objective of today, what we will be discussing, is the role of stakeholders. And again, we believe that there are really huge changes that should be addressed. First of all, earlier governments basically decided on major investments, on big infrastructure changes, and they were the only or the main orchestrators of traffic systems. That's not necessarily true anymore. Especially through digital platforms, really they allow us to communicate directly to service providers, they allow us to communicate directly with each other, and through this there are many new roles that we observe. For example, citizens are involved, we can directly share vehicles, we don't need any organization that would help us with that. We observe new startups that are trying to enter this field. Another big shift is from the traditional traffic management role to city management. Again, we want really to see impact of transport on emissions, on environment, etc. And clearly there are many new challenges. So nowadays we don't want just to plan infrastructure, as I already said, but we want to see impact of new policies, pricing policies, some motivation for new travel modes, etc. So the tools that we are using should help us to show impact of such policies. It should be really easy to add new players. We have been looking at the different stakeholders, new stakeholders. So there are, for example, multi-agent systems that are very interesting in a way that we have distributed intelligence. We don't have a centrally organized everything, but we have distributed system, and it's quite easy to add new agents, new players. This is actually one of the crucial things, at least in my perspective. We really must work together with urbanists, we must work together with energy management, we must work together with all different players in a city. So that's actually the shift towards city management. And there are very interesting concepts such as 15-minute cities that basically expect that, or the ideal is that you can walk everywhere within 15 minutes to school, to shop, and you manage everything without actually the need to be mobile. So there is a big shift from mobility to accessibility and sustainability. And we have really come across many questions, such as regulation when introducing micromobility, especially most major cities have been facing some problems and were trying to regulate them. That's certainly a challenge. Big question about public space versus mobility, opportunities, etc. Standardization is very important. Personally, I really believe that the role of universities and of all this research should be in a way to protect city management from aggressive marketing, because otherwise how they can really tell what is a good solution for them and for the city. So we need tools, we need solutions to help them pick the most suitable solution. Okay, and basically all of this was really just very briefly showing you all the different aspects we want to address today. And what we would like to do is to learn about your opinion on the shifting world. We want to discuss with you new trends and how your role is changing. What are your opinions on that? And your feedback and contribution will be really important. And for this, we will finally start with a more interactive part. And I would like to ask Roberta, who is going to tell you how are we actually going to work together within the next minutes. So thank you for your attention. And Roberta, if you want.
I can start, yeah?
Thank you.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Roberta Falsina from Poliedra, that is a consortium of Politecnico di Milano. So here is the brief agenda of my presentation. It's really short, so I will talk a bit about the objectives, but already Andre explained them really well. Then I will show you the panelists that will do this discussion with me and with you too. And at the end, we will talk about the workshop organization. And then finally, we can start with our interactive workshop. So the objectives are to create a discussion and learn about also from this discussion. So we will discuss the changes in the field of transportation and mobility. We will focus also on the new needs, new desires. And the main topics will be 5. And these had been already explained really well from Andre, but here are them shown really briefly. So the first one, it's about the stakeholders, so all the new players that we have in these fields. Then we will talk a bit more about the business models and the new services that we can see in the mobility sector in the recent years. Then we will focus on the challenges, so the obstacles and the changes that we have. And then we will shift to the 4th point, that is about the tools. So what are the tools that you and we are already using, and what are the gaps of this? And at the end, we will just focus on the KPIs, so the performance indicator, and understand what are the ones that we use now and how they can change, what are the new ones that we will expect in the near future. So here are us. So we are. I will be the moderator of this discussion. Then we have a lot of panelists, and it's a really international panel. So we have me and Valerio from Italy. Then we have Andre from Prague. We have Sven from Belgium, Rick from Netherlands, and Christosos from Greece. So the workshop organization, what we will do now is to discuss these different topics, the one that I showed you before, so the 5 main topics that we talked about, and just start asking you questions with Mentimeter. So you will have to answer, then we will comment all the answers and understand how to go on and just make this discussion really interactive. So we want you to communicate with us. So how you could do this? You just have to raise your hand on Teams, so you can see the icon that you have to press. And then when we see that you raise your hand, we will just give you the floor, and you have to open your microphone and camera and just start talking. Or if you want, you can also use the team chat to ask us questions or clarification about some question that maybe you didn't understand. So what you have to do now is to answer the question that we will give you on Mentimeter. And you can access to Mentimeter just by going on their website, that is www.menti.com, and then put inside the code that you will see in the next slide, and you will always see the code in each slide, in the upper part of the slide. Or if you want, you can also scan the QR code that you will see in the next slide. So we will use more or less 15 minutes per section, and we really want you to be interactive. So please just ask us questions, raise your hand, and discuss with us about these changes. So I asked Rick now to share his screen with the Mentimeter questions so that we can start. And it will be really easy, so don't worry. And we are here for you. If you need help, just ask. Okay.
Yes, I started sharing my screen, so I'm not sure if everyone can see that right now.
Yeah, I see it split it in different screens. Just give us a few moments, few minutes that we will fix this.
So I also put the link and the login code for Mentimeter in the chat. I'm not sure if everyone can see that. Not in the Teams chat, but
Yes, exactly. So if someone wants to start answering it, they can find the link in the Teams chat. Let's see. Okay, perfect.
yes, there it is.
Okay, so as I said before, you just have to go on the website or scan the QR code, and then you will enter in Mentimeter. So I don't know if also the others hear me. Do you hear me?
Sure. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, yes, I just see the first slide. So maybe we can go to the next one and see if everyone see it
We have
and
7 people
they can
online. I
start.
see 8. Yes.
Okay, good. Continue to like us.
So we can go to the first
So,
question.
exactly. So we will start with a little icebreaker, and just tell us how do you feel today. Wow. Okay. Yeah, me too. I also need coffee actually. But I see that most of the people are excited. Wow, good job. Well, no one is, so I think that is really good. Okay,
And most
so
importantly,
we have,
nobody's angry.
yes, exactly. That's really important. Just one thing for the panelists, I don't see you, so if you want to say something, just open your microphone and start talking. Just, okay, now I see you too. That's perfect. So raise your, if you want your physical hand, if you want to say something and if you see some nice comments. So we can just move to the next question. What, Andri?
Here,
Oh, okay. So the next question is about what field do you work in? So let's see. Okay, I see a bit blurry, actually.
Yeah, and actually, we had a question how to connect to the Mentimeter. So you can see it on the main screen right now. There is this menti.com, and if you enter the number that's there, you will always get to the right page.
Exactly. And maybe sometimes you have to refresh it, but then you will just see where we are. So yeah, most of the people are from the research field for now. Let's see. Okay, so we have 9 from the research, 6 from consultancy, 1 policy maker, and 1 traffic manager. Okay, so no service operators and no others. Well, that's great anyway. Okay, so I think that we can move to the next slide, like to the next question, maybe. Okay, so as we said before, as Andri said, in these years we have new stakeholders and new players. And this first question will be really about stakeholders. So what are the new stakeholders or players that have been newly involved in a mobility project? So in this case, we have a word cloud, which means that you can type maximum 2 words for each answer, but you can submit multiple answers. So if you want to say more, just send us more answers. And then we will talk a bit more about it. Okay, so we can see that there is insurance company, small mobility providers. Wow, now all the things arrive together. So insurance company is really important, as we can see. Then we have micro mobility providers, schools, small mobility providers, standardization organisms, web platforms, and startups. So I also asked to the speakers if they see something that they think it's interesting just to tell us, and maybe we can ask to our listeners to interact with us. So you can give the good example to all the audience. Just raise your hand on Teams, and we will give you the word. So maybe you can explain a bit better what you just answered.
So there's two things that actually stand out to me, and the first is schools. So how are schools new stakeholders in the mobility? I'm curious. But also the TV.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe someone in the audience wants to interact a bit with us about the answers. Okay, Sven, if you want to say something.
Yeah, I was curious about the schools, who was thinking this and what is about it. What I do see in Belgium, for example, is we have a lot of these smaller, also in the Netherlands, smaller companies. They have like one specific service, typically to a city. I think you may also call them startups, so it's more or less the same. I think that is coming along quite nice, and it's always as part of some mass initiative. But I don't think there is a big business model involved there. So I think they're just trying to pick a grain of the mass landscape.
Yeah, you have these many small, maybe we call it micro mobility companies.
Yeah.
Here we mentioned them earlier as well. You see scooters or speed pedelecs everywhere on the streets, and people just park them anywhere. So that's a big problem for cities, just like Andre mentioned. I think Andre also wanted to say something.
Yeah, I actually am quite happy to see that insurance companies are named here as an important new stakeholder, because I really think so. There are many ways how insurance companies can motivate people to behave in some way that's useful for a community. It can be through financing of the vehicles, etc. So insurance companies are, in my opinion, really important players, and I am glad that the audience pointed that out.
Yeah, so the most okay, Sven, go on. Sorry, I see that you raised your hand. Also, Chris.
Yeah, I just thought of an anecdote. It's interesting for Rick's comment, by the way, because there are new services like scooters, for example, and they're everywhere in the city. I've seen a new business model where there's a company that collects all the scooters at night and then returns them in return of a small fee to the original company. As opposed to having the company to have to pay the fines to the municipality, they now just pay for the service to pick up the scooters. So you never thought of that, did you?
No, actually no. Chrysostomos, do you want to say something?
Yes, I am also curious regarding a stakeholder type mentioned as drivers without a license in the answers. And I would also like to add some additional types, such as vehicle manufacturers, taking into account that the operational design domain of tomorrow, let's say, will be a result of close cooperation between vehicle manufacturers and transportation planners. I also see technology providers. I also see another category, let's say, intermediaries that may be analysts or back-end system operators that are not directly related to the transport system operation. And another category is mobility service providers.
Okay, so maybe we can just recheck the slide so we can see the answer again. Okay, so I saw also that Valerio wants to add something.
Yes, about schools, I was wondering if in some schools there is the mobility manager as well as in companies. Mobility manager, a professionist that is, let's say, helping the students in finding the best way to reach school from home and to, for example, interact with the municipality in order to get better services for the students. I wonder if there is for somewhere also for the schools this kind of professionals.
Well, that would be really interesting. I know that, for example, Politecnico has it, but it's a university, so it's a bit different. And I don't know if some of our panelists have experience in this or know a bit more.
I can only say that it's certainly not the case in Czech Republic. I don't know of any school that actually offer such service, but it's a very interesting idea.
Oh,
Not
we have a
not with
question
us
in
either.
Teams. So I saw that we have a question in Teams. So I asked to tell me what is the question so I can read it for all.
I raised my hand, maybe that's what you saw.
Yeah. So if you can tell us your opinion, that would be really great.
Yeah, I was the one who put the driver without a license into the Mentimeter, because I think that could be a really shift of using autonomous vehicles with class 5, probably by people who don't have a license, like school.
Thank you for this important.
So that's why I put it in there. The customer saw that, so that's what I want to enlighten. Why? Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe Christos want to say something? No, Sven, no, Rick. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to comment on that, because yes, I also think that's can become quite a large problem if anyone can just enter a car without supervision from a parent. So if a child can enter a car and just drive to a location where it sets itself to, it could become quite a problem. Because where does he go, and is it safe? If he just gets out of the car, where does it go? So there should be security systems ready for those kind of situations as well.
Yeah, this is an important aspect, and I think that Christomos wants to add something more.
And another dimension regarding this issue is to assess which are the implications in terms of travel demand. Whether the existence of drivers without license will affect the level of travel demand within urban areas.
Okay, Sven, please reply or say something more.
Well, as Andres already mentioned it, in Czechia it doesn't exist really, but these mobility managers for schools in Belgium, neither. I think it limits itself to lower grade where they just teach children how to cross the street in a safe manner, these kind of things, and some measures that are taken in the immediate vicinity of a school, but that's more on a policy level. The government just creates these places where children can cross the street safely. However, interestingly, I was at a debate with policymakers in Belgium, and there they talked about, okay, the thing that Rick mentioned, where do all these cars go to? So suppose that they drop off the kid of 6 years old and they drop it off at school. The kid just drives with the car, nothing else. It's like an automated bus, whatever. And then it's there, and then what is the car going to do then, aside from safety, etc., and security? And so they were thinking about, should all these cars go to the side of the city, or should they be floating around? So in that respect, you also have the thing about who owns the vehicle and vehicle ownership. I think that will definitely shift, and probably also the startup will work on this like Uber is doing, and this will definitely create some weird new mobility trend that we're not aware of yet, probably.
Yeah, I think that we will speak a bit more also about this topic in the next questions. So I think that maybe we can shift to the next one, if for you is okay, or if you want to add something more, just tell me. Okay, I think we are ready for the second topic of today. So the third question is about business models. So as we said before, we have new stakeholders, and this means that we have also new business models, new services. So the question is, what new services and business model do you observe in the mobility field? And in this type of question, you can send us like short sentences, like a bit longer than the question before, and you can also submit multiple answers. So please submit as many answers as you want. And then we will also maybe select the most interesting one and ask you to talk with us. And that would be great, so we can hear also some other voices. So let's see if we receive some answers now. But I see that Rick wants to introduce something more about this question, maybe.
Yes, because well, I know that Sven just already mentioned one of the new business models, which is picking up the scooters from micromobility operators. So that's a very interesting one. But I'm not sure, Sven, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more, because normally the idea of these scooters is that they're distributed along the city so that people can pick them up anywhere. So is it that they pick up the scooters from places they should not be parked?
Yeah, the problem is that they are, for example, on pedestrian road walks, etc. They're in the way. It's like, well, mobility has to be inclusive as of today, meaning that people with various degrees of mobility impairment should also be able to take part. Now, if the pedestrian sidewalk is blocked by a small scooter or a bicycle or whatever that lies on the thing, people start to get complaining more quickly nowadays. And so in order to avoid this and to have a good, let's say, impression of the city wants to take matters into their own hands. So they're trying to actively find the people that leave these things behind. So if police sees this, depending on in what city you live, you may get a fine or not, or they may say something about it. So this is where these businesses then shine. They try to clean, let's say, what is left behind, or they put them on a safe location.
So meanwhile, we did get a few answers.
Okay, let's see those maybe.
Yeah.
Wow, we have a bit more bubbles than before. So we have picking up scooters, last mile distribution in combination with public transport, Then I just start reading them. If you see something that you find interesting, just interrupt me and we will discuss it a little bit more. Then we have charging micromobility devices at home. And then we have clean shared vehicles. Then we have moving from data or app island to networks, increasing user value and usability, combining options for different modes of transportation. Then mass apps, car sharing services in combination with real estate development to reduce parking facilities, organize shared mobility space for micro and micro mobility. Okay, I asked to the speakers if maybe they want to add something more about these comments, or if they see something interesting and maybe want to discuss it more with the person that write it. Okay, I see Rick raise his hand.
Yes, I'm quite curious. I do know the car sharing services in combination with real estate development, which is actually quite a large concept within the mobility field in the Netherlands. A lot of people are talking about it. We call it mobility hubs. So what we do is when we try to plan a new residential area, we also think about what types of people do we want to live there, and what type of mobility do they use. So when we plan those areas, there will also be a large parking space, for example, where a lot of types of modalities are available, which could be public transport or bikes or shared cars, everything which can be accessed by just a sort of public transport card. And I think this is what is meant by this comment. It's a very interesting concept. I'm not sure if this is also in other parts of Europe.
I don't know if in Italy we have it. Maybe Valerio knows more about it, but I'm not really sure. But it seems really interesting, and I think it's... Yes, Valerio, do you want to say something more?
Yeah. Yes, it's a very new topic. Let's say only the most advanced and innovative project will consider the mobility sector also in the building construction. But I mean, for the moment, it's not widespread like in Netherlands for sure. But we have some example in Milan of new districts that are going to be built in the next years that are already designing some car sharing services or some mobility hub, as Rick said.
Andre, please go on.
I only want to add that it's really a big topic that's also starting in Czech Republic, and recently we have been discussing how actually plan parking for new development projects, because we have very old-fashioned way that basically for each unit, independently on anything else, you just must have 2 parking spaces, something like that. I know in London they have this public transport accessibility index, and based on that they plan the parking spaces for new developments. So if you have a flat close to tube, to metro line, then you don't need to build that many parking spaces because it's expected you will be using the public transport, which I consider very interesting, and I think it actually fits very nicely with this concept.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I see that Sven also wants to say something more.
Continuing on Ondrej, in Belgium, well, in Flanders, we have what we call the M score, the mobility score. And for every home that you have, you can calculate a score that is like a sort of weighted average of how far are you away from public transport, etc. And there was a big fear that it would introduce the house price, etc., because now suddenly the government created an instrument that may increase or decrease the value of your house based on perceived mobility. And if that index is not fully up to par, if there are some small issues like, okay, there is only only a direct line involved with public transport, but all the other lines are not involved, then you get a skewed result. So this led to some problems. And to go even further, for example, when you build, let's say, an apartment block, the idea is that everyone who lives in there has at least 1.5 cars, for example. So we also need parking places for all these cars, either in the street or underground or whatever. And the idea is to use the parking space by saying in spatial planning, okay, you want to build there, you want to build for 20 families, but you only have place for 10 cars. However, even though a good idea and it will stimulate this car sharing, from a policy point of view, they're not very keen on it, even though they want it, because they are met with a lot of resistance to that. So I don't know how they do it in the Netherlands. Maybe they're more how you say it, welfaring than us in that respect, or more daring. But we are more like cautioning on the side of erring.
Yeah, I see similar problems also in Italy, actually. So it's a bit difficult to change your behaviors, but we are trying to do this. So Rick, please continue. And then I see that also Chrysostomos wants to add something.
Yeah, I have a very small response to what Sven said, because what we've seen that is very important is that when building a new residential area and making sure that the mobility options are already there, then some type of residential selection, it is called, it happens. So people that like to travel with public transport start looking for a house in that area. And what happens if you already have the residential area and then add a mobility hub or a public transport line, is that people already have a car. So they already chose their modality of transport, and then they are less eager to change their modality.
Please, Chrysostomos, continue.
Yes, I would really like to endorse one answer related with moving from the applications island to networks. And I would like to comment that indeed there are many applications developed over the last years, and several of them have been analyzed in the context of various research and development initiatives and specific use cases of them. But I think that the challenge of combining these services and applications at the network level to, let's say, fulfill the goals of a smart city is a challenge that should be that we have to take into account during our project. And I believe that this encompasses both the assessment of the effects of these services, but how we can combine them in order to, let's say, fulfill the goals that are grouped under the framework of smart cities. So I would really like to endorse this answer. I don't know if this is a business model, but I believe that it is a very important research area.
Yes, I agree. I don't know if maybe we have some answer that we think are interesting and we want to ask to our audience to interact with us. So let's see. And I asked to the panelists if maybe they have some curiosities on one of the answers. So we can ask to that person to talk about it. So I see that we have a lot of new bubbles, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the impact of electric mobility to the mobility as a service models, seamless travel planning and routing. Business models focus on sustainability, emissions reduction, and circular economy. Multimodal mobility in town and region, synergy between the modes of transport. MaaS will have a positive impact to give access to mobility to more while allowing people to live farther to their working place, leaving them with lower cost of living. Then we have electric vehicle charging providers. Parking is like APCOA are expanding their traditional parking garages and structure into mobility and hubs and more electric cars. Well, this is these are all really good and interesting answers. And let's see if the panelist wants to talk a bit more about one of these bubbles, or maybe we can move to the next question. See. Okay, I see Sven. Wow, okay, we have a lot of resends. Okay, let's start with Sven, then we have Rick and Andre.
I would first like to know or understand how this electric vehicle landscape will impact mass. I'm not fully sure. What I do see is that public transport providers, especially in Flanders, for example, they say that the last mile, we do not cover that because we don't have enough buses to say for sure to do all of that. But then again, what electrification of the vehicle or the fleet infrastructure, why would it cause a change in mass? I would understand that it comes from automated vehicles that may impact some stuff, but electrification is something that will happen in any case. So how is that going to impact mass? Who has any idea about that?
Maybe we can ask also to the people that answered this to raise their hands so they can explain a little bit more their thought. Let's see if someone answered. Well, in the meanwhile, yes, Andre, maybe you can start speaking a bit.
Thank you. It's a slightly different topic. I'm just kind of surprised that we haven't seen any new business models with respect to new data, because I believe that in data there could be actually a big business. Information about availability of free parking spaces, etc., actually can save a lot of money for gas, etc. So I would expect that there should be new business models dealing really with sharing of data, availability of data, some level of service with respect to data, etc.
Then maybe Rick wanted to say something before. I don't know if you want still to say something more.
Yeah, I can first respond to Andre, because one of the things I had in mind is indeed sharing many types of data of roads with users of vehicles. So, for example, a lot of data is combined in some apps like TomTom or Waze, where, for example, you get a message if ahead there's some bad weather or heavy rain or snow or anything that can be dangerous, or maybe in the future, due to all the people sharing their data with a certain platform and combining all that data, we can also notify people of where congestion is in real time. So people can either choose to reroute, or maybe we can even make them act upon those on congestion. So we tell them to slow down their vehicle, reduce the inflow into the jam, and then solve the jam earlier.
Well, this is really interesting, and I think that this topic also, like these new business models, these new things, will also bring new challenges. So if you want, we can maybe move to the next question and discuss a little bit more about the challenges that we see nowadays. So as I was said, according to these new business models, new stakeholders, we also have new challenges in the sector. So here we have a lot of different answers, and what you have to do is to select maximum to 3 answers and then submit them, and we will see the results. But I ask to Andre to explain a bit better each one of the options that we have. Thank you.
Yes, sure. Actually, I don't think I will be talking about all of them, because I covered some of them in the presentation before. New legislation, I believe it's pretty clear. Privacy, it's a big issue. GDPR, all the things with data, big data processing, video data, etc. what needs explanation is this excessive information, because I am afraid we are living in a world that you can basically get all the information, but it's very difficult to get the right information that you need. And right now I don't see all the questions anymore, so I cannot explain them.
We have, so the third option is need of new data.
Yeah. So actually, another thing that might need explanation is this technocracy versus livability. So here, again, I already talked about it. We observe that there are many new tools, many new softwares, many new sensors, and that's one way how to look on the transport sector. But what is actually more important and getting more and more important is this livability. So sensors and technology, they are important, but they should be supporting something else, some use cases that really help, or services that really help people. So that was meant by this question.
Then we have also new algorithms, excessive information, impact assessment modeling, digital gap inclusiveness, technocracy versus livability, new business models, sustainability, environmental friendliness, and others. I just read you through all the options because now people start answering and it gets a little bit messy.
But I think we covered most of those that needed explanation.
Yeah, I think the same. Well, as we can see, most of the people vote for privacy. So we have 9 votes for privacy. Then we have 7 votes for technocracy, yes, livability. And the third one is excessive informations. And then we have new legislation, sustainability, 3 votes for inclusiveness, digital gap. And then we have 2 votes for new business models. And at the end, at the bottom, we have 1 vote for new data, algorithms, and impact assessment. I ask you if you want maybe to comment a bit more on this graph to the panelists or go ahead, Sven.
I wonder if privacy wasn't between the options, how it would shift then. Because I'm a bit puzzled that inclusiveness, for example, is not so high on the scale. I would assume that this is one of the problems of our current mobility systems and that we need to tackle, given that the European Commission is also giving special attention to these kind of topics, to have digital inclusion, to have inclusion in the broadest sense. So I wonder if privacy is actually smothering the debate a little, because privacy is always important, etc. But okay, let's try to move beyond that. Let's look at the other things more importantly for now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the digital gap is really important, and yes, we also have a lot of project, like European project about the topic. And I see that Chrysostomos wants to comment too.
I would like to comment that I totally agree with the high ranking of excessive information, because I think that a lot of data are available right now, but we really need high resolution data in order to move research to the next level. And we also need data analysis methods in order to utilize the available data sources.
Yes, exactly. I agree. And we need also to understand how to communicate them better, probably. So, okay, I see that we covered this topic, I think. I ask again if the panelist wants to comment a little bit more, or if not, we can move to the next topic. So, okay. So maybe we can go. Oh, go ahead, Valerio.
I just want to highlight that the environmental sustainability is not, let's say, a very new topic compared with maybe excess of information and digital gaps. but is still something that is strongly changed all the business model in mobility field in the last years. Not only in terms of new vehicles, electric vehicles, but let's say that all the sharing mobility start from the need to reduce private cars in cities. So, in my opinion, the impact of this challenge is still very important.
Yeah, it's something that it will go on for a lot of years, hopefully. And then I see that also Andri wants to say something more.
Actually, I just wanted to encourage the audience, in case you joined us later, you can still join us on Mentimeter, this website, menti.com, with the number that's provided on the slides, and you can still join the discussion. Yeah, you can see the address as well as the number on the top of the screen, and please join us. We are really enjoying this feedback from you, so it would be great if you participate. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So I will stress a bit more than this to interact with us, please. So also the discussion will be with more voices, and this will be really, really cool. So maybe we can start with a new topic and see if now our audience it's a bit more interactive also with us. So this topic is about the tools. So with tools, we mean all the tools. And in this case, we are talking about what traffic analysis tools are you mainly using nowadays. So I will just read them. We have sketch planning tools, travel demand models, analytical deterministic tools, traffic optimizer tools, macroscopic simulation models, mesoscopic simulation models, microscopic simulation models. Then we have others, traditional solutions. So if you want to choose this one, it's about traditional tools other than the ones that we listed above. And the last answer is about others, new integrated tools. So about new solution that we didn't mention before. And if you don't know what to answer, just not answer to this question. So we already have some answers. Okay, the graph is moving. Let's see what we will have. Okay, so for now, we have microscopic simulation that has 4 votes. Okay, go on, Andre.
Yeah,
Please.
actually, I don't want to discourage the audience to say these others new integrated solutions, but please, those of you who have provided this answer, if you could tell us what you understand under this or which tool you are using, that would be a big help. That's actually, I don't want to say the most important answer for us, but the one that really needs a little bit of decoding on your side. So if you be so net and told us what are you using, that would be great.
Okay, so while we are waiting, maybe we can just go through the answers. So let's see if our audience wants to raise their hands. As I said before, if you want to talk with us, go on the Teams and raise your hand. Then we will open the mic, like we will give you the access to talk with us, to speak with us. So as we can see, the most voted one was travel demands models. Then we have at the same position microscopic simulation, traffic optimization tools, analytical deterministic tools. Then with 3 votes, we have microscopic simulation. And then we have also 4 answers for others, 2 for new integrated solution and 2 for traditional solution. So as Andre was saying before, please just talk with us and tell us what you know more about these other tools, or just answer on the team chat so that we can know a bit more about it. And then we have also 2 votes for mesoscopic simulation. So while we are waiting for those people to interact with us, maybe we can start commenting a bit these tools. As to the panelists, if they want to just tell us something more, maybe. Go on, Christosos.
I believe that it really depends on the purpose. It depends also on what software is available and what data are available. And I think that the purpose is a very important parameter. For instance, if someone wants to analyze the behavior of new types of cars or new types of services, let's say, which is the car following behavior of an automated vehicle, I think that microscopic simulation is the only viable solution. Now, if someone wants to, let's say, assess traffic management strategy and he or she is not wishing to, let's say, provide to a tool a lot of data, I think that mesoscopic simulation is also a viable solution, let's say, to assess the effects of several traffic management strategies through, let's say, a macroscopic fundamental diagram, which is feasible through mesoscopic simulation tools. So I think that the purpose is a governing factor in this question.
Thank you, Christos, for this feedback. And I saw that we have a question, so I asked if we can just give him the word from the audience. Okay, we have PH. I'm sorry, I can't read the name. If you can open your microphone. Yes.
I am PH.
Perfect. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. I can say something about this question. I am from city of Písek in Czech Republic, and I want to say something about the data because we use mobile phone data, the GSM and mobile data from the mobile operators. So we use it for information to find information which is connected to parking. So we know the probability where I can park my vehicle in the streets. We don't use any sensors, we use GSM data. So I think this can be a possibility. And also we know the ways of passengers, or not only passengers, but the peoples. We know now that there are some other towns connected with Písek where the inhabitants travel to Písek because there are some place where there are place with industry section. So we know which towns are connected to Písek, and we can offer, for example, car sharing with cooperation with that town. It's kind of a new thinking. For example, Mlevsko, they are very active in this way also. So we use this.
It's freeze, no?
In Teams, he is still talking, but here not.
Arc.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay, but can they hear us? Like, we are not frozen, I think. Okay.
Good
Okay, now
point.
maybe I see that maybe he will rejoin us. Let's see.
I'm also logged in on the Teams, and there it's an empty screen for the moment.
Ah, okay. So maybe
I get a
it's not.
message that the sound is gone.
We can talk, but they are not connected to us anymore.
Ouch. Okay, let's wait.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think that we have also another question, anyway. Another person that wants to talk.
No?
No? Okay. So, can they hear us now?
No, there's still nothing to see in the Teams. Rick, Steven wrote integrated multiple source dashboards. That's a heavy word.
Well, I hope you can come explain that.
Okay.
But I could imagine something for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too, but
Let's see if we can talk with him, actually.
I think there are about 20 people in that room. I'm gonna type to them.
We are coming back.
Yeah,
Don't leave.
just hold on. Oh, technical issue. We're coming back. So now they start complaining. We're back. Yeah.
We're back now? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, we didn't hear the last part of PH PH talk. So I don't know if maybe we can talk with him a little bit more. And then they told me also that we have a comment on the chat, and we would like to ask to Steven, was the name right? To tell us
Yes.
more. Okay. So let's wait that our guests come in. Okay, perfect. Hi, can you hear us?
Patrick,
That's all I said.
Okay, now we can hear you. Sorry, we have to ask you to repeat it.
Okay, I'm making a problem, so I will finish. So the GSM data from operators was my answer.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if one of the
Okay, I will
panelists wants
disconnect.
to.
Maybe I am the problem.
No, it's okay. What I
Alright.
noticed is that people in the Teams group, they still hear each other. We hear each other, but sometimes we don't hear one another. But it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
And I think, yeah, see, Magdalena wrote that they could hear you. So either we hear them and they hear us, or none of us hear each other.
Well, good.
And I have the idea that we're out again. The panelist session drops out. Yeah.
I don't know what we can do actually.
I think to increase the sounds in the live stream works. What does that mean? Can you hear us panelists rumbling to each other? I think the next one we should ask is Steven to give some insight.
Yeah.
To keep
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
going with the audience. We're back. Yeah.
to asi celé nějaké tahle.
Where the existing tools not meet your expectations or needs, what are the main gaps?
Okay. And just one clarification with tools, in this question, we mean all the ones that we said above, but also all the ones that you know. So don't be fixed on the list that we said before. And in this case, we have a type of question that is a word cloud. So similar to the one that we did before, you have to answer with a maximum of 2 words, but you can submit multiple answers. So please just tell us more. Okay, let's see. Okay, maybe in the meanwhile, yeah. Sorry, Sven, go on.
I asked people in chat to join the Mentimeter also, because they weren't always hearing us. So now it should be okay.
Okay. So just let's wait a bit for the answers to come. And I don't know in the meanwhile if you want to say something more, or if not, we will wait for a second and see if someone answers. Okay.
It's coming.
So we have for now soft modes, share mobility, micromobility. So then we have applicability. Yeah, it would be interesting to know more about their answer. Okay. So we have data sharing between tools. Yes, that's a really huge gap, I would say. Let's give them a bit of time to think. It's not that easy.
I would in any case like to invite the person who wrote applicability to explain his answer a little.
Okay, we have a question. Let's see if we can manage this. No questions. We had a question that was probably a raised hand, but now we don't have questions anymore. Okay, now we are receiving a bit more answers. Too many dashboards, no good policy indicators, different data availability, electric cars range, shared mobility, soft modes application integration, data on one platform. I see that one of the main topics is to have just one platform for all the data. is one of the gaps that we can see. Forced electromobility, too many dashboards, shared mobility, applicability. So I ask again to the person that wrote applicability if he or she can share he or she her thoughts or his thoughts about it with us. So please don't be scared. We won't judge you, I promise you. Okay, more answers are coming, but I don't know which ones I already read actually. Let's see, force electromobility. Oh no, this one I read it. Then we have travel network coverage, soft modes.
I asked in the chat to the person for the applicability. Now let's hope that they answer.
I think that maybe we scared we scared him or her. I don't know. So in the meanwhile, I will ask to the panelists if maybe they have something more or if they have something else in their mind to answer to this question. Yeah, Andri, go ahead.
I expect even more is this no good policy indicators. Because I really think this integration of different tools, the interfaces among them, and getting into the real impact of policies. That's at least for me and my experience one of the crucial things that I miss in most of the tools.
Yes, thank you for this answer. And
David wants to say something.
Okay, please, David, come to join us. Let's see. We can manage to make him join our discussion. Oh, here we have him. Hi, David. We can't hear you. I hope that he's not talking just on Teams.
No, I don't hear anything on Teams either. So, okay, let's move on. Either we comment more or we go to another question.
Okay, so if you want to add something more, if not, we will move to the next question, as Sven was saying.
Steven Burma has a comment to make.
Did he write it, or does he want to speak with us?
He did like this.
Okay, so maybe he could join us.
Thank you.
Hi.
Do you hear me? Sound?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, what I encountered with the project I'm working on in the north of the Netherlands is that the data coverage is really poor, and that we have still rely on old school counting systems, speed measuring systems. We have some coverage in the Netherlands, of course, by mobile data from our national access point for traveling time. But if you're looking at vulnerable roads, for instance, when there is a big roadwork going on in Groningen, and we are looking at how to monitor all the issues around the city, and we are now cooking up a monitoring plan, but you still have to rely a lot on data collection that we have to add to that. So there is a lot of data available. We use also a lot of in our own dashboards, for instance, in Amsterdam and Nijmegen. But you still see that there is some places is a big coverage, other places is still poor. and you have to add something. So that was what I was put into the Mentimeter. Thank you.
Thank you. And you will have also, I think, a lot of answers for the next topic that is about data and KPIs, actually. I don't know if maybe one of the panelists wants to add something more. Anyway, thank you for all your comments and feedbacks that you are giving us. Okay, I see that maybe we can move to the next topic that is about KPIs and data. So as we were saying, we have a lot of new sources of data and tools. So for example, the information that we collect from devices with sensors such as the smartphones, or for example, what we can see also on the social networks, that they work as information collectors. So according to this, what we want to ask you is, what new data do you need to be able to address new challenges? In this case, it will work like the question that you did before. So you have to answer in short sentences, and we will see bubbles coming in the slide. So after that, I will just start reading all the answers. So we have our first answer, that is all entries, exits to public transport. Then now maybe we have a little bit to wait because this is a longer question to answer. Then we have door-to-door travel information from transport users. Walking and cycling data, slow modes. Well, that's true. How to destroy batteries ecologically when they lose capacity. A really hard topic, I would say. Logistic data. Okay, so in the meanwhile, I ask also to my colleagues if they want to add something more, if they have other thoughts about these questions. Okay, go on, Valerio, please.
Yeah, let's say that for municipalities like Milano, for example, to have the availability of all the sharing mobility service data is very important in order to plan, let's say, how these many services can interact and have space in the cities. Because, for example, in Milan, there are at the moment about 20 services. And so it's kind of difficult to make sure that all the areas of the cities are covered. Most of the service just prefer to put their vehicles in the center. So if we wanted to provide to the users a better service, we can gather all the data from each operator and try to model them and to have a suggestion to have a better balance of these services. So this is, in my opinion, one of the challenges that we can address during the nuMIDAS project.
Yeah, I totally agree on this thought. Does someone else? Yeah, Christomos, go ahead.
I think that we also need data that may be useful to calibrate and validate our existing models. And this may include, let's say, vehicle trajectories captured by unmanned aerial vehicles, the behavior of automated vehicles in real-world conditions, or even the behavior of micromobility modes in also in real-world conditions. And as I have already stated, the main purpose is to validate and calibrate existing and ongoing modeling endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Andri.
Wait. I think we are offline from the group again because the image seems to be frozen in the Teams.
Ouch. Let's see.
I don't see the word cloud anymore, for example. They say it's okay. Ondrej, go.
I just wanted to basically agree with Chrysostomos because I feel that it's very important to move from behavior of vehicles to really behavior of humans. So to get to this nanoscopic simulation that really we would understand better how people behave using the vehicles, using other technologies. So that's, in my opinion, very important, and not too much attention is being paid to that.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, everyone, for these feedbacks. And I wanted to ask you if we received new answers. So maybe we can start reading them.
We got some new
I
answers.
see that. Yes, perfect. Okay. So information instead of data. Yes, I totally agree with this one, actually. Preference data, decision support data based on services, KPIs, and rules. Data from existing companies in the market. Short-term multimodal travel prediction, and age demographic data associated with adoption of transport and mobility services for community organization and development. Okay, so I asked to the panelists if they think they want to talk a little bit more on one of these topics. Yes, Andre, go on.
Yes, actually, another thing that I like here is the age or the demographic data about citizens, that we really should move from travel demand modeling into this activity-based modeling, which is the idea that travel is derived from participation on activities. So we should really learn how to model our behavior. That's something that we could see during COVID pandemic, that it was very difficult to model transportation using the traditional tool without understanding the motivation. Why do people actually travel? With home office, it's change of our activity participation. With all the digitalization and e-government, we can also get rid of some trips. So it's very important to model not only the trips, but to really model the entire activity participation.
Yes, I totally agree with this. And I see that also Sven want to add something.
I heard activity-based and it triggered me a little. I like the approach, but it's definitely not that easy. I think in Flanders, part of Belgium, they wanted to move from the trip-based classic model to more this activity-based. So it means you have to create a synthetic population, like a community within a computer. However, to get the data, to get all of that calibrated, and in the end, it has to give at least for the baseline the same results as a trip-based model. That's very, very difficult, and that research is still ongoing. So I think it would be good if we have travel diaries and anything that give insight, like surveys and things like that. I think it's very important indeed that we have those kind of inputs in these models.
Thank you, Sven, for this answer. Yes, Rick, go on, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so we also have another comment that says data from existing companies in the market. And maybe, well, it's a little bit controversial, but existing data from companies like Facebook can maybe help in those travel or the activity-based models, because they do know a lot of information about many people. So it might be used, although it's quite controversial topic, of course. Also about data from existing companies in the market, another comment is that it's also a challenge in itself to combine all these types of data, because all those companies have different fields, different things they did save, but also they're also almost never willing to share this data. So it's a challenge in itself, and Chrysostomos already mentioned there's intermediaries coming up, which act like a partner in between all those companies, and they make sure that all the data for each company is still safe and nothing is shared without their permission.
Yeah, always. Yeah, exactly. Always covering also the privacy part, let's say. So, do we have also a new answer? Is Rick or okay? So no, I see
Only
that.
one.
Which one? Sorry, is it new? The
Was
green
this
one?
one?
Yeah.
The last one?
Data in residential areas to cover the use of last mile logistics and micromobility. Okay, so I asked to the panelists if they want to add something more. If not, we can go to the last question. I think that we can skip the question 8 and go to the 9, that is maybe the longer one.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Yes, so here we ask you to rate the answers. So the question is where should be focused the effort of traffic city managers? So you have to rate. If you vote 1, it means that you think that we don't need to care a lot now about this topic. If you answer 3, it is okay how we are taking care now. And if you answer 5, it means that we really need to do something about it. And for this question, you will have just one submission and you have to vote each one of the answers. So maybe it will take a bit more than usual, but we think that this question is really interesting and it's a bit like the summary of the last part. So yeah, we already have an answer, I think. Let's see. And we kindly ask you to, the people that maybe answer others, if they can type the others in the team chat. So maybe we can talk a bit more with you for the last question, because this will be the last one. And then we will go with the last icebreaker, I would say. So, okay. We see that the votes are moving, but most important to take care of is, for now, it's the integration of traffic management with other smart city areas. Then we have cooperation with new stakeholders, further developments of traffic management tools. Then we have prioritization based in challenges. At the same spot, we have development and integration of new business models and clear identification of new KPIs. So I asked to my colleagues if they want to comment a bit more this graph. And I ask also to the audience to tell us more about the answer others, if they have more ideas. Yes, Sven, go ahead.
I'm happy to see that integration of traffic management takes the first spot. I've been in many traffic management projects, and in many cases, we talk about stuff, but never about real traffic management or how it integrates with the system. So in most cases, what I see is that cities get a dashboard and that's that. But the real traffic management is not just the person sitting behind the dashboard and making a decision. It's the way we can support him with the tools that are needed for that. So in that case, it really needs to be more an integrated approach for the entire city, and that requires at least some new ways of thinking about it.
Thank you, Sven, for this answer. And I see that we got some questions also on Slido, but are probably about the question before. So I don't know if you want maybe to comment this question, to answer to this question right now, and then afterwards we can see if the other participants continue to answer to the last question. So what they asked on Slido is a question for the panel from a previous question. At what point in community development do you consider the type of accessible mobility? And then another question is, do you target the type of mobility to desired demographic or existing demographic? For example, scooter sharing in an elderly community. Yes, Sven.
I cannot speak for the cities, but I can imagine that you have to do this targeting upfront before you start to develop and create your vision and about everything. It's like with privacy, you can do it afterwards, it doesn't work, but if you do it upfront, like privacy by design, it works. We can do the same with things like accessibility, for example, or for mobility impairment. And I think for these mobility hubs or whatever we call them, these kind of issues are already being taken into account. Now for spatial planning in a city, and that should be really getting more and more upfront. So the sooner they do this, the better.
Thank you, Sven. I think it was really clear. I don't know if someone else wants to add something at this answer, or if maybe we should go back to the slides to see if the results changed. Okay, no, I think that they remain quite the same. So, yeah, I don't know if some of you want to comment a bit more. And I see that, yes, Andri, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just one thought. I am not sure whether the fact that we are on Smart City Symposium Prague event could affect the answer that people believe that integration with other smart city areas is really important. So that's just something.
It's true. Okay. I see that now the position slightly changed. So we have as the first one the integration of traffic management with other smart cities, but now the second one became cooperation with new stakeholders. That it seems quite important. And as the third, we have further developments of traffic management tools. Yes, Andri.
Yeah, maybe one more thing. I'm actually glad that we have this cooperation with new stakeholders as another important issue because, for example, citizens' involvement in projects and really from the beginning, through the planning up to implementation is something that I personally believe is very important, and the traditional tools do not really offer this option. So even though it's not true anymore and it's not on second place anymore, very closely, still for me it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, also the European projects are really focused on this thing and to collaborate also with citizens and a lot of different types of stakeholders. So I don't know if the other speakers, the other panels wants to add something more. If not, we can also go to the next question, that it will be the last one. So it's an easier question, let's say. So it's just, how do you feel about this workshop? So did you, in this case, you have also to rate the answer. So if you rate 1, you strongly disagree with the sentence that you see. And if you vote 5, it means that you strongly agree. So we have, I learned new things. I'm inspired. I see the importance of nuMIDAS. I'm interested in the results of nuMIDAS. So I'm happy to see that they strongly agree, mainly for now. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, it's really nice to see that a lot of people are interested in the results of nuMIDAS. So that would be really good. And also to know that people want to support us. Yeah, I think we finalized all the votes. I'm really happy to see the results actually. And thank you so much that you answer like this and that you interact with us. It was really interesting also from my point of view. And we want also to tell you that if you have a question, you can ask us question. There is no problem. Contact us always. You can find the contacts at the end of this presentation. And I think that the last slide is about the Q&A, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I also want to add, because there's a lot of people that are interested in the results, of course. If you want to receive updates, we mentioned it earlier as well, subscribe for the newsletter on the website, www.numidas.eu, and you will get a half-year reports or newsletters, of course. And
I've pasted the link so they can just join it directly.
Yes, Andre, do you want to say something more?
Just to add that most of the deliverables we will have, so the results of all the work we will be doing, will be publicly available on our website. So really it's good to subscribe for the newsletter, that you get reminder that we are doing something, and then you can really find even the detailed results in the deliverable section.
Yes, so please, if you have other questions, just ask us what you prefer. And this last question is about this. So you just have to type your question and then we will see it on the screen. Or if you want also to give us feedback, as you prefer. So in the meanwhile, I really thanked all the panelists to be here with me in this discussion. It was really interesting and really interactive. We have some issues with the technology, but I think it's normal in this period. So anyway, it was really, really good. Thank you all, and thank you to all the audience to be part of this.
Yeah, so far we got one comment, which says multimodal focus is what we need. Personally, I really agree with that, because we have so many types of transportation, and it would be really good to have them all fit together in one big transportation system. Instead of people having to choose modes, people can use all the modes they want, just whatever is best for that certain trip.
Yes, I totally agree. And also, I think that another important part will be to make really the city all connected with this multimodal transportation. That is also one of the challenge, probably. Okay, so if someone else wants to add the last thought. Okay, go on, Andre.
Actually, I wanted also to thank everybody in the panel as well as in the audience. For me, it was really very interesting to collect all this feedback, so thank you very much for that. But really, this doesn't need to be the end of our communication, so there are many ways how to connect with us, and we will appreciate it. It should be really something that we all learn something about, so please get in touch with us. And this was actually the end of this workshop, as well as the end of the entire symposium. That was the last session. So also on behalf of the organizers of the Smart City Symposium Prague, I really wanted to thank you for all the attention you paid to us in the last day and a half. And really, any feedback, any comments, any cooperation would be really welcome, and we are looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of you guys.
Okay.
And yeah, good job.
Thanks to you, Roberta.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.